are bright and shiny in my mind. You got me loving, hating, crazy indecision in my mind.
Welcome to the Fall Podcast, where the focus is on deer hunting, tips, tricks, tactics, and stories from across the Midwest. And now, here is your host, Aaron Blicey.
Welcome back to the Fall Podcast. I am your host, Aaron Blicey, and this is episode number 50, the Big 5-0. Wow, I just can't believe it.
Yeah, man, milestone.
It is a milestone. It really is. I mean, it only took, 10 months to get to 50.
Right.
Missing a couple weeks here and there in the fall, though, just because of the grind and everything. And, you know, now that we're pumping out 2 a week with the coffee calls and the main show here, we're getting back up on track and going to be a lot better with that coming up this year, and got some things in the works, and I can't wait, man. I'm still excited about it. I love doing these things, and it's exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I really enjoy it too. I feel like sometimes we're scratching our heads trying to figure out what we want to talk about, but it seems like it comes out okay.
Yeah. The thing is the possibilities are just endless. I mean,
yeah,
you can talk about so many things. You can get granular with it. I mean, we could talk about broadheads one time, arrow building, bow building, and not just that, but like the management side. It's just endless, and it's like you try, we try and be relevant with the content as much as we can when we talk about the management and like the farm stuff. And I want people to be able to take the information as they hear it right off the bat and then go out and implement that right away if they want,
Yeah. I mean, like you said, you can literally do it on anything, and it sounds easy to just pick something out of the sky, but when the possibilities are so vast, it's kind of hard to just pick one.
And that's ultimately why we wanted to start the coffee calls, because we wanted to hear from all the listeners.
Right.
We kind of get tunnel vision in a way when we're thinking of guests every week and getting a hold of these guys and gals, and I like to hear from other people and get into the questions that they want to hear too, because ultimately that's what we're doing this for, is to try to reach out to those people and get what they want. So
right. Yeah, it's a good system so far, and said we've had some really great guests in the past, and I know we've got some really good ones coming up from going forward too. So
yeah,
I know we kind of had the idea this week at 50 just to kind of talk between the two of us to kind of look back and look forward, but then also talk about maybe some production stuff, because I know it's something we obviously have a pretty big grasp on, and everyone's got a YouTube page now, or a YouTube channel, so I don't feel like we get that many questions about this stuff like to justify the coffee call, so we're just going to kind of dive into it and go back and forth on our editing styles and shooting for the edit when you're in the field.
Yeah, and you and I have two different ways of going about what we do, but we're getting the same end goal. Right. We're putting out content, and people seem to really like it, because I know our shows and everything get really good feedback, and I'm sure you guys do as well. Yeah. I don't get to see the back end of that stuff, but yeah, I mean, jumping into basically producing your hunts as far as shooting for the edit, and then getting into the the edit bay when you're done and try to put that together, because ultimately that's when everything is going to come to fruition, and that's your final product. So you really want to know how to first shoot it for the edit. Yep. For that final product, you know what I mean? And it's not something that you can just kind of pick up a camera and go do. I mean, you can do it, but is it the most effective and efficient way if you haven't really learned or done a lot of it? So I think that's kind of something we can jump into today and kind of take it from there.
Yeah, and I mean, there's no more black and white way to put that, like you just said, other than by telling people that this is the difference between a cameraman and a field producer. Like the things that we're about to explain, define a field producer and their abilities versus just a cameraman. And I mean, I don't mean to sound conceited about that, but I mean, you and I will both agree that there is a difference, and it comes down to, your ability to recognize the story that's taking place and how to document it for the editor, whether that's for you as the editor or for somebody else in the office or somebody you want to sub out to edit for you. Like, there's a difference.
Yep, I agree, man. And honestly, I think a lot of our peers, you know, the guys that we work with in the industry and everything, I think they could, you know, vouch for the same thing and agree with us by saying, you know, there is a difference between a field producer and a cameraman. And I, you know, none of us mean that in a bad way. Like, there's a lot of good, effective cameramen out there. It's just they're put in a situation where they just need to, you know, lay down a kill shot and get in a tree or a blind, hit record, make sure it's in focus, make sure your exposure is good, and then for a field producer, you're just that guy's producing the whole show from start to finish. He's got to think one step ahead of everybody, think about how the storyline's going, and you know how he sees it in the edit as well, you know, at the end of it, and how the final product really is. And that's two vastly different ways of thinking. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with that either. No,
there's not. And it's not something I take offense to. If someone calls me a cameraman, I mean, it's a term. It's kind of a, you know, it's just a socially acceptable title in our business. And it's, I mean, you know, until you ask the guy, it's like I said, it doesn't upset me or insult me that I get called a cameraman by somebody who doesn't know what I'm actually doing. It's just right. The way people see you. Like, you're always the guy holding the camera. So it's like, oh, he's a cameraman.
Exactly. Yep.
I don't know, like you said, to be able to be in the field and know what the editor is going to need, or, you know, the shots you have to get in order to convey the message you're trying to tell. I mean, there's a different feeling that a viewer gets when they see a really badass drone shot set to the right piece of music, or like when you're shooting in 120, you know, while it's snowing out and you got a guy walking, you know, up to his knees in the snow, you know, like it's those little things that you interpret that put the viewer in that moment. And not everybody can do that, in my opinion.
I agree. Well, before we jump into that, you know, we haven't really did any updates much on here, what's going on with us and everything. And you just got off of the Iowa Deer Classic for a long weekend. And, you know, I kind of want to know how that went. I didn't even talk to you about that. So how did that all shake out?
Oh, it was good. I mean, just a typical weekend, you know, show schedule. Stay awake late, get up early, and, you know, just talk to everybody that wants to stop by and talk to you. I was able to actually get out of the booth for a while and catch up with Lindsay Zastro. We had her on a few weeks ago talking about her buck kill, and she actually won second place women's archery for the biggest buck in Iowa this year. You know, of the deer that were submitted at the expo or at the classic. So that was kind of cool. I got to meet her face to face, and I got to meet Andrew Walter at Wild Edge. I know he was on with you kind of before I came on the scene, but
yep,
it was just cool to like meet people that we've already had interaction with. You know, we already realized we have something in common. Like we love what they do as hunters, and you know the products they bring, and you know, whether that's the hunting story or a specific product. You know, like the difference between Drew and Lindsay, but. It was just neat. Like, it's like you already know these people, and you never even met them face to face.
Yep.
And, you know, it's kind of the same way. Like, it was kind of fulfilling for me because that's how the viewers see us. Like, it's like, oh, I saw your hunt. You know, it's like, that was so cool. Or like, they feel like they already know you. And it's like, well, because, yeah, I guess I didn't really think of it that way. Like, there's people out there that pay attention to that, you know. And it was like the way I felt meeting Drew and Lindsay. I felt the same way meeting anyone who come up to me to talk about the hunt that they saw, you know, that went out back in December. It was like, man, I didn't ever look at it this way before, but it's pretty humbling.
Yeah, it really is. And, you know, Drew, I mean, him and Lindsay both are great people. I wanted to touch on Drew for a second. Drew is a solid guy, and his product, and I've said it before, he's got the Wild Edge Steppladder. That's, you know, his company, and it's a climbing method. It's a way to climb up, you know, in your tree, and whether you're using a saddle or a tree stand. And these things are awesome. They're about £1 a piece, and you can customize them any way you want. If you want, you know, 10 steps, you can get a bag of 10. If you want 8, you want 6, you want 15, like you can customize them on the website. And, you know, he's got this thing dialed. Like, these steps are really nice. And for the run and gun mobile guy, and even for a guy that just sets up his stands, you can leave these in trees forever. Like he was telling me he's got steps that have been in the same tree for like 10, 15 years and everything's still good on them. Straps are good. He's never taken them out and they're still just as solid as they were the first day, put them out there. So his product is really neat and honestly, probably in my opinion, the best climbing method out there that, for one, that I've used. For two, I would just say all around, because if you're on public land, if you're a public land hunter, you can't screw in anything into the tree. These don't hurt the tree at all. They're light. If you got a set of 10, you're about 10 pounds. So it's light. And then, they come in a cool bag that, you sling over your shoulder, over your neck and everything, and they pack really nice. They're quiet. And honestly, you can get up in the tree quiet, effectively, and safely as well. And these steps are just really cool. And I honestly want to get Drew back on again and talk a little bit more about him, but also get into his season, because he killed a couple bucks this year. And I need to reach back out to him and see if he'd want to come back on and do some talking about it. But yeah, he's got a really good thing going on there. And I just encourage everybody to go and look at him. Go to his website, look at him, go to the social pages. It's Wild Edge. That's his company. And the steps are called the Steppladder. So go check that out and read up on them, because they're really cool.
Yeah, he had some new stuff at the Deer Classic that was supposed to come out this month, for sale. He's got a really cool platform that they've built that's integrated right into the steps. Kind of locks in, so you don't need to buy any extra parts. If you're a saddle hunter, you've got a nice platform right there it's all aluminum, and they had some pretty big boys hanging off of that thing at the show, and it was very impressive as far as what those little steps can handle.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I did see that. You did that live feed on the Instagram, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
You actually showed more of the steps, but on some of the live stuff and the stuff Drew was doing, I saw that platform. That was really cool.
Yep.
Cool and good idea. The guy's got a hell of a engineer mind, I'll tell you. He makes all that stuff in his shop, like right there at his house, and that's crazy. He just grinds it out, man. He's a hard worker, and he's a good dude too.
Yep. Yeah, he really is.
So that was about it for the Classic then, huh? Not much else going on. Talked to some people and.
Yeah, I didn't get to break away from our booth a whole lot. I did some filming there for our off-season episode that went out, last week, I guess. 2 weeks ago it would have been now. No, it was last week.
I'm not sure. I lost track of weeks, man.
Yeah, I did too. I thought yesterday was Thursday all day.
Yep.
Anyway, I was floating around getting some shots for that episode that came out after the Classic was over. Other than that, just meeting viewers and seeing some people from the industry that were in town for the show and just kind of catching up. I didn't go to ATA this year, so this was the only show I did with Midwest Whitetail this year, and kind of our hometown show. So it was just nice to be home and still have the same feeling you get when you go out and meet everybody somewhere else like that.
Right. Well, that's cool. It's always fun to go to those shows. I've never been to the Iowa Deer Classic. Always wanted to go. Just haven't really had time to be able to devote to go out there and do it. But that's cool. I know it's a pretty big show and a lot of cool people there. And
yeah.
But as for me, a little bit, just a quick update. I haven't done much really. I very quickly I did a swipe around the main farm to look for some sheds, and just so much snow still. I had to take the snowmobile out there because there's just so much snow still, and I pulled some cameras or pulled some cards from the cameras and everything just to see what's kind of moving through. But other than that, last weekend I went in and did some hinge cutting in the 1 acre, some more. I did more hinge cutting this year for access. I wanted to be able to get into some stands and not have to push anything out of the 1 acre. And I've got a new plan, which I really dissected it this time. And I know I had planned, on our podcast before, how we talked about our plans for 2019 I tweaked it a little bit just because I think I found out a better way to hunt this 1 acre, and we're going to see if it all works, coming this season. But I got a pretty cool plan, and I might actually even do a video about it to be able to put up on the YouTube channel, but we'll see. So I went out there and did a little bit of hinge cutting and just blocked some areas off so I'm able to get into some stands and spend a couple hours doing that. But that's about it, man. I mean, really haven't really done much other than that. Like I said, I like to stay off the farm and as much as I can, and especially right now with those deer just, it's getting warmer though. I mean, we're kind of out of that. I say that we're kind of out of the extreme cold, but who knows? I mean, it's Michigan. You never know. I mean, right now, today, it's 34 degrees with 21-mile-an-hour wind, and it rained all night last night. And then Thursday is supposed to be a high of 62. So I really don't know what the heck's going on. But that's Michigan for you. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, getting ready to get the bow out. I've just got done zeroing that thing down in the basement and got it all tuned up and ready to go. But now I just got to find, a window in the weather to go out and shoot it a little bit. But other than that, I mean, I feel like I'm in a pretty good spot right now, and just work's pretty busy, just trying to edit Rival and getting dropped out, which, by the way, dropped will air tonight at 7:30 on the Outdoor Channel if anybody wants to see that. So, yeah, but other than that, I did want to briefly talk real quick about, I know both of us did, about America's Best Bowstrings. You guys hear the little snippets every week about our partner America's Best, and I honestly want to talk about them for just a quick second. I know we're kind of getting lengthy here on this intro, but these guys offer a lot of really good strings and cables, and I just kind of want to break down a little bit what they do offer. They have a Platinum Series string, that's the top of the line. And also they have a Premium Series string, which is the OG. I mean, that's what America's Best was, created from, was these premium strings. And then lastly, they have a Pursuit set of strings, which comes in right around $100. And this is still top of the line string, but it's more for that guy that is kind of on a budget and still wants a really quality string and a lot of possibilities with custom colors and all that. Like, all these strings come with, endless amounts of colors that you can do on these with serving and with the string itself. And the Pursuit is just, like I said, it's just more of a cost-effective string that really is a high performer as well. And, if you guys are in the market for them, in good time, tax return money's coming back. I know, you're looking at your bow and you want to pimp it out a little bit more. Go to America's Best Bowstrings and customize your string. Do what you want to do with your colors and your shrink wrap and your the colors on that. And then at checkout, type in Fall Podcast for $10 off. So you get $10 off of orders over $100 or more. So it's just a cool little thing that they're helping us out with, and I really appreciate Bryant and Jerry over there and really doing that, because they didn't have to do that. And, it's just really cool what they're doing. And I can vouch, and I know you can as well, because we've used their strings now for a little bit, and they're high quality strings and really cool people to work with as well. And the company is second to none.
Yeah, it really is. I actually just got word that I'm going to be shooting a different bow again this year, so I've got another bow coming already, and it was a new one for 2019, and I went right on the website, and they actually didn't have it listed, so I text Bryant, and he's like, well, what's it based off of, what kind of cams are they, and I gave him the info and sent him a link to the description of the bow, and he's like, yeah, I found it, but we don't have, something about the roller guards on it. And he said, would you be able to just send us the bow and we'll put everything on for you? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. So, just an example of not having the bow I wanted a string for. He had it found and figured out in 15 minutes, and the only reason he needs the bow is because they haven't done that bow before. They need to build the model for it and add it to the list. So I'm going to send it to them as soon as I get it, and they're going to set it right up for me.
Yeah. And it's not only just because it's you and I. They would do that for anybody, I would bet.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
that's just the type of guys they are. And Jerry, the owner, as you're going to send your bow up there and get it worked on, Jerry has worked in a bow shop for a long time, and he was a competitive shooter as well. I mean, this guy knows his ways around bows very well. So, I mean, they've got great technicians there. They know what the hell they're doing, and I just can't say enough about all of them, because they would say that just about anybody they wouldn't even know as well. Hey, send your bow in. We want to make sure it's done right, and we don't have the specs for this. They'd do it for anybody. I know they would. But enough with that. I say we get into this this talk. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. We're going on like 25 minutes on an intro.
That's everybody's probably shut it off by now. So
Maybe. We're gonna talk about production, I promise.
Yeah. I say we get into production here.
Yeah.
So let's kick it off. Let's start talking about shooting for the edit, and then getting it into the the edit bay when you're done, and really finalizing that project. So I don't know. Do you want to kick it off, or do you want me to kick it off?
Oh man, I'll kick it off, and I'll start by saying that we touched on this in the first few minutes, but we've kind of got a different style, a different way that we do things between the two of us, and I think a lot of that comes from the way our content is not only created but delivered. Like I know you shoot a lot of your own stuff that you get to edit for Rival or for Dropped, whereas me with Midwest Whitetail, we rely on that semi-live format. So we have, this pro staff all over the country that's, self-filming, by themselves or with a partner, and it's getting submitted to us, via email. So it's like I don't have any control of that. I can give all the feedback I can come up with and try to help these guys and gals, be better with their cameras, but I'm not out there seeing the hunt and documenting it. So like when I see it, I have to watch the hunt and get a feel for the pace or the rhythm of the hunt, kind of the emotion that's in it. Was it disappointment? Was it, a kill? Was it the preparation? Like try to figure out the underlying theme of their hunt or their, the footage they send me, and figure out a way to incorporate that into an episode that has sometimes 2 or 3 other storylines going simultaneously, which I guess is a similarity that we have because that's how you guys run Rival.
Exactly. Yep. A lot of different storylines going on at the same time. To that point, I would, my first thing I would say is when you're going into filming, so let's say you're starting off the year with, filming a series, or whether it's a short film, or if you're trying to film kind of like what Justin does with Midwest Whitetail, where you have a weekly show. When you go into that, it's all the same process. You want to figure out how you want it to look before you start. You want a good starting point. And, if that's like very cinematic, or if that's very raw, off the cuff, vlog style, which is a big thing right now. A lot of people doing the vlog style where it's like the selfie style, or, it's a mix between the two. You kind of want to make sure you know how you want it to look and what you want the end product to be. Not saying that's going to be what it is at the end. You might, go down a different path once you start figuring things out during the season, because the biggest thing with our job being in the hunting world, dealing with animals that really aren't trained, you can't dictate what an animal does. You can try like heck, but it just doesn't happen. They don't read the script all the time, or for that matter, very, very little they read the script. But, there are some things that you can control, and you need to identify those things that you can control. And that, what I mean by that is, how you capture all the other stuff other than hunting, the outside stuff. Maybe that might be doing food plots, that might be checking trail cams, that might be hanging tree stands. Like, figure out how you want that to look, the stuff that you can control, and then fill in the blanks with all the hunts, if that makes sense. Because, like I said, you can't dictate that at all. So have a storyline, in mind, or a couple, before you even get started with all those other elements that you can control. Yeah,
and sometimes, I've found that, obviously the goal is to is to tell the story or share the experience, from that person's perspective and like convey the emotion they're experiencing. But sometimes it's like when I start struggling as the editor, trying to figure out what these people are doing, it's like, okay, how would I feel in their shoes? Like, what's the vision I have of their experience? Like, how am I interpreting this even though I'm not there? Like, how is a viewer going to see this? It's like, okay, well, just take a step out of it for a second and think about what you're watching and how it looks and how it makes you feel. And for me, that's the hardest part is when I'm not the one shooting the footage, I have to determine what it feels like to watch it. And it's not a matter of just watching it to see them hang a tree stand, but if it's like, they're hanging steps and it's like, oh, I forgot my rope. Or you get 3 steps up and it's like, well, now there's a crotch in the tree. I don't have enough steps to get around it or something, It's like, obviously that person's pretty frustrated by the time it's over with. So like, I want to show that this is very repetitive. It's over and over. Like, I forgot this crap. I forgot that, I left my tree saw in the truck, like, the back and forth, but I mean, just an example. It's like, it's not as simple as just saying, hang the tree stand, shoot the deer. There's different moving parts to it that kind of are ebbs and flows of the experience from start to finish.
Yeah. And like you said, it's all that extra stuff that is what really matters. There's so many people out there, like YouTubers and even television shows that go out there and you just see them in a tree all the time, either talking to the camera about what's going on, and then you see some deer go by and there's no rhyme or reason to it because, I mean, that they're not producing it. They're just like kind of filming it as what's convenient. You really got to think of the extra stuff that not a lot of people are doing, but you made a good point. You kind of got to step back from that and put your viewer hat on. Step away from the producer aspect in a way, or, put your viewer hat on and say, okay, how do I see this stand hang really unfolding? You know what I mean? What really happened? Like, what's happening right here? Maybe you sit in one area looking up in the trees for 15, 20 minutes trying to figure out what the best tree is. That happens to everybody. You know what I mean? And it's like figuring out how to capture that and really bring the viewer in to that, because all viewers have been through that one time or another. You know what I mean? You want them to kind of feel your pain, like, shit, I need to be in that tree, but I can't get in that tree for X, Y, and Z. So is that the better tree? And like you said, that's just another example, but that's a short, small example to a lot of other things that are, arise like that in a lot of different circumstances. Not to mention, a big thing is people's trail cam getting stolen. A lot of people's trail cams are getting stolen every year. Knock on wood, I have not had that happen. Guys on public land get their camera stolen a lot. You gotta capture that somehow. I mean, that's a pain in the ass because, you spend so much time and money into these cameras and everything you do, and then you walk out there and maybe you haven't been in that area for so long because you wanted to let it sit, and like you just go in there and your camera's gone. And you're like, what the hell? Seriously? And you want the viewer to feel your pain a little bit, and because other people have been through that. And that's what really makes a show, those kind of elements, what really make a show above and beyond better than just taking a camera, setting it on a little tree arm in the tree, hitting record, and recording deer.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, that's just the example you used. I mean, that happened to me this year. But the thing is, if you're filming yourself or you're filming somebody else, just convey the emotion. I said, whether it's anger, happiness, and just it's hard to recognize it when it's happening, but being pissed off is an emotion. They're going to tell you shut the camera off or like don't show that. It's like, well, you're mad. I need to show that you're mad about this, just as much as they want you to show them how happy they are when things actually work out the way they're supposed to.
Right.
That's the difference. Like, I don't want to say the difference, but that's up to you as the field producer to recognize and tell that person, I'm sorry, this is the way it is. Like, this is part of it. Like, watch your language, all I can tell you. Just, I don't care if you're mad. I got to get it.
Yep. Right. And I'd like to back up a little bit. And I think the route I kind of want to go with this next point is like actually go through a scenario as far as like basically taking it from the truck, from the truck to getting into a tree stand and the different ways that you can shoot that to make everything flow well. Just so, because, you see a lot of times where it's like you might see a guy in the truck or something heading to the stand, but then the next shot is him in the stand talking to the camera. Where's those shots in between? You know what I mean? Where is that time? What should you be shooting? Because a lot of people have asked me, how do you produce that side of things, and how do you get the vision for that, and how do you lay that story down? Well, I'm just going to start from what I do, from the truck. So I'm just going to take it from the truck, and if I'm filming someone else, you can take this for self-filming also, and I can give you a couple different examples. So, but for the first one, let's say I am filming someone else. I'm not hunting. I'm the field producer, and I've got a hunter. So, that hunter is going to go through a process at the truck, and that process is going to probably be putting on his camo, his or her camo, taking the bow out of the case or rifle, and putting boots on, maybe, like capture all that stuff from different angles. And you always got to think tight shots, medium shots, and wide shots. You don't want everything as a medium shot, from one medium shot to the next, one wide shot to the next, one tight to a tight. You always want to go from a tight to a medium to wide, or, there's so many endless possibilities, a wide to a tight to a medium. Think of it in different ways like that. So shoot it in 3 different ways. And I'm not saying like get a shot of someone putting their boot on as a wide and then be like, okay, take your boot out and do it again. You can do that if you want. And then you get like a medium shot. Or if you want to get a different composition, what I mean by that is, maybe get a different shot, maybe go around to the other side, or, get above them if you can, like on a tailgate or something, to look down, and maybe that's your medium shot. Think of out of the box things and different angles. And another way is, so let's say the hunter is dressed, ready to go walk into the stand. So a shot that I like to get to kind of get me into that stand is, there's one shot you can do, and it's a wide shot from, either the buggy, whether it be like a, truck, or if it's a Ranger or whatever it is kind of get the truck or whatever you guys took there, get that kind of framed up in it where you can kind of see it in the shot, not like all of it, just a little bit of it. And then you see the hunter walking at a distance, you know what I mean? And walking away from the truck. So that kind of tells the viewers, okay, they're leaving the truck, they're heading to the stand. So that, you kind of got to keep that flow going. And then that gets you into the stand. There's other ways you can do shots when you get to the stand. Usually the cameraman or the field producer goes up first. So if you go up first, get your camera ready real quick, get a shot down at the hunter coming up into the stand. That's another way to get someone in the stand. It's just those little shots, the extra ones that a lot of people overlook and they don't get, and that's just, like I said, I'm going to keep going back to it. That's what draws the viewer in more.
Yeah, it does. It's because you're able to bring that person through the screen and put them right in that same position. Yes, they are watching what's going on, like they know they're not there, but there are little things that make you realize how much you like it, and you don't even know it's happening. Like just the way you cut from wide to medium to tight, or I a lot of times I find myself skipping the medium angle, depending on the situation. I like going from like extreme tight to like super wide, like drone shot, establishing like tailgate coming down, and then boom, right to the hand on the tote, like full frame, like one extreme to the other.
Right.
But it's people don't even realize why they like the visual stimulation that has. They don't even realize it's happening, but it's like, wow, that was cool.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't think about like, oh, that guy did that 3 different times. He made them recreate that 3 different times. They don't think of that. They just think of, because they're invested, they're engaged, And you brought up a good point, drone shots. Drone shots are a good transition shot from one place to the next, or a good B-roll shot. The B-roll that we shoot, we like to go out and, before the season, I have like a manifest that that everybody gets, or we have a meeting that we talk about it to all the shooters that are working on Rival Wild or dropped or whatever it is. But for this instance, I'm going to talk about Rival Wild in like a Midwest feel. So going into this, the series, going into the season, we talk amongst each other and we say, okay, what is the B-roll that we're going to need this year to establish the Midwest and where we're at, So if we're in Kansas, it's a lot of open plains. It's a lot of, CRP and fence rows and all that stuff. Go capture that stuff. If you guys have if you take a morning off from hunting, go out that morning, get a sunrise, get fence shots, static shots, which static shots, and I've said it before, is just, a shot that's just stagnant. You hit record and let it roll for 6-7 seconds. That's a static shot. Get some pans, get some, time lapses, everything that tells the story about where you're at and sets the stage of where you're at. Because like I said, nobody wants to see something where you're just in the stand all the time and there's no extra stuff. If I was doing a show in Michigan, I'd really want to hone in on a deer camp atmosphere, because not just Michigan, I'm just saying that for, because that's where I am right now. And that's Michigan tradition is deer camp, but deer camp is tradition all over the Midwest. It just might be portrayed in different ways,
Right.
So get the camaraderie around camp, get the cooking, get the eating, all that stuff, skinning the deer after you able to kill one. All that stuff is crucial to a storyline and to a show that you want to be effective and you want people to be engaged in.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal, is to engage the viewer.
And there's a couple different ways to be able to do that as well. And for instance, when we started Rival Wild, we wanted it to be more cinematic. What I mean by that is we wanted to feel more of like a short film movie type, and we wanted all the cameras on tripods. Like every shot was going to be a tripod shot, and we wanted to be like a little more of a slower pace, not so upbeat, and just more cinematic, more thinking about the quality of the shots and the storyline than than just kind of like running off the cuff with it. Now, with that end of the spectrum, you have another end of the spectrum, and it's kind of what you guys do at Midwest Whitetail, and you guys are very effective at doing it, and it's two different ways, but between Rival Wild and the Midwest Whitetail feel, but at the end of the day, we're getting the same results as far as like engagement and viewership and quality, but we're just going about it two different ways. And I'm going to let you kind of elaborate a little more on that side.
Yeah, I think the term you use was off the cuff, and it's, that's true to a degree. I mean, we still plan our episodes. I know you didn't call us out there. I'm just using what you said in our case here. But we plan every week episode. We pick a topic we're going to discuss, talk about what we're going to say about it. And this runs from off season, like right now, like we just started our off season series, and we even do that throughout the entire hunting season, and it gets pretty tough, to be honest, because you've got so many people that are hunting at the same time, and like especially when you watch Chasing November, there's 3 or 4 storylines going at once, but it's all the same footage that we already had from the previous year's season. So it's like we're telling the story in a different way. Like it's a little more cinematic. We kind of elevate the production, to be more story driven or more. I don't want to say story driven because there's a story to tell during deer season, but it's more, I guess, like cinematic, like you said. Whereas during the season, it's kind of, we don't have time to do this right now, but let's edit it in a way that keeps it real and relatable, and let's make sure there's some kind of educational element in there, like talk about why your hunt was successful, or just break something down that worked for you, whether you killed or not. Good, bad, or indifferent. Talk about what you're going to do next time. And it's not a matter of, like you said, whether it's the right way or the wrong way to do it. It's just we're getting to the same place at the end of this. We're just doing it 2 different ways in the moment.
Right, but we also have some similarities in the fact that we're planning things out that we can control, like you had talked and like I had talked.
Yeah.
We're planning out what B-roll we want to get. We're planning out what storylines we want to happen, that we can control. We can't control whether we're going to go out and get on a 150-inch 4.5-year-old. We can't control that. We can try and hunt our ass off and work to that goal, but that's the fun part about it, because that whole journey is all story. There's story there, and then there's all these other little story elements that come off of it, as far as like you could be hunting a deer for 2 weeks and all of a sudden a big snowstorm comes or weather rolls in, or he gets hit by a car, or he gets killed by a neighbor. Like, that's another good way of thinking too. Let's say you're building this story up about this deer and the neighbor kills him. Now, how do you close that story out with that deer? Do you just talk about like, the neighbor killed him, but then you don't have any supporting footage of, pictures probably or video of him. See if you can get a hold of that neighbor and go film the deer. You know what I mean? Like, that's the extra stuff that we're talking about that really gets the train moving and really, like I said, engagement. It gets everybody engaged and it just makes it that much better.
Yeah.
We do a lot of similarities, but there's a lot of differences.
We had a very similar situation last week. I had to put a blog out, and literally it's what you just said. One of the guy's private farms in Decatur, he found out that 2 of his deer, his hit list deer, were killed, both by the neighbors. And he found out at the Deer Classic because the taxidermist came up and told him. But he had like 3 years worth of sheds, so we did a little segment on that, talking about his progression up to 5 years old, and then to have the neighbor kill him.
See, and that's cool. That's like, that's closing out that story.
Yeah.
That's, it sucks to know that 2 of your hit listers got killed, but now you can close out that story, and now there's a little bit of closure, and the story keeps going on.
Yeah.
My final thoughts or closing thoughts for everything that we just kind of covered is, don't forget to think of the editor, whether the editor is you or whether the editor is someone else in the end as you're shooting all this stuff. You don't want to leave your editor out to dry with nothing else to use to get that story flowing, because the editor is going to gouge his eyeballs out because he can't, figure out where the story is going or finish the story, start it, or where's the middle of it. So always think of your editor as you're shooting with the story. Now, rule of thumb as well is, if you ask yourself, should I shoot that? You're questioning yourself, you should shoot it. Like, go shoot it. If you're like, should I get that bird shot? Yes, you should get that bird shot.
Yeah.
So if you always tell yourself that, then do it. Because I do it all the time. When I'm in the stand, it's like, man, there's a squirrel there. I got to get up out of the chair, out of the seat, get the camera ready. Do I need to shoot it? And it's like, yeah, get a squirrel shot. Get a couple of them. So then the next time a squirrel comes around, maybe you don't have to get a squirrel shot. You got a couple now. Shoot it different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it.
100%. Shoot it in different ways so your editor can choose from whatever he or she wants to use. So, that's kind of my closing thoughts on it.
Yeah, I think if I had to culminate this, I would say, there's an evolutionary process to this. It's not something you can just go do and, be great at and get everything right every time right out of the gate. I mean, just realize that it takes a lot of experience in the field and on the computer to really, grasp what we're talking about here and to realize where you stand in that evolutionary process. And I mean, I'm not saying you're bad if you're not all the way there yet. Just realize where you are in that process. Like, I mean, you and I are both still learning stuff every day. I mean, I know I do.
Every day.
I mean, there's still shortcuts I don't know or use on Premiere. It's not a matter of, getting a creative shot in the field. It's about being just as creative once you get back to the computer or thinking about the creativity of the editor you're giving it to. Like you said, just leave them a way in, leave them a way out, and everything will be good. And if you want to, we mentioned relatability a minute ago, and I mean there's nothing more real and raw and relatable than just a vlogger on YouTube with it, putting videos out about anything. I mean, Joel Burham, Whitetail Fit, like we had him on a few weeks ago. I mean, there's a guy who just started an apparel brand, you know, and just kept pounding the brand, and, you know, running his hashtag, venison gains, and just one thing led to another and another and another. And it's like, man, he just partnered with Realtree. Okay. And he's just self-filming blogs at the gym, or getting his bow set up at Shields, you know. He films his own hunts too, you know, and he does all his own editing. I mean, I guarantee if you ask him, I mean, this probably wasn't, you know, something he thought was feasible when he first started. He's like, I just want to sell some t-shirts, you know. And it's like, you start doing a little more, and then you just start feeding the beast, and it's like, next thing you know, you've got an empire. I mean,
right. He's the perfect example. I'm glad you brought him up. He's perfect.
It really is. And I mean, anybody. I mean, I don't follow a lot of people on YouTube outside of the industry, but you know, there is I'll say it again, the word relatability. There's nothing that will grab someone's attention more than when they realize how much they have in common with you. Like, it's like, wow, they're no different than me. They're hunting Grandpa's farm, or, you know, they're shooting the bow that, you know, their brother gave up, or, you know what I mean? Like, not everybody is out there shooting brand new stuff every year, or using this or that, or, you know, those people that say must be nice to blah, blah, blah. You know, there's just as much effectiveness in doing it your way, because that's the way the majority of people do it. Guys like us, we're doing it with specific products because there's a lot of money on the line. And that's, you know, unfortunately, that's just the opposite side of the coin. I mean, that's industry, that's business, and that's what you and I are in. But I mean, if you look at people that are just as successful, if not more, doing it their own way, and just talking about, you know, going to adopt a dog from the pound or whatever, I mean, the proof is in the numbers. What's your goal, and how are you getting there? Who's getting more views? Yep. How many views are you getting? How many views are they getting? You know, and that's what brings value to stuff like this, is the number of eyeballs you can put on it. So,
yep, be different.
Yeah,
figure out what that is and be different. You know, try something new. Get out of your comfort. Comfort's when you die. I mean, You know what I mean? When you get comfortable, that's when you're stagnant, and that's when you start getting...
Yeah, that's when you get lapped.
Comfortable.
Yeah, you get lapped. And I mean, I said it a few weeks ago. It's like, I constantly think about myself as like a football player, a quarterback. It's like, if I'm not up on my game, there's 15 other people that could have my job tomorrow. You know, there's 15 people that want it, put it that way. You know,
right.
In some cases that may mean there's 15,000 people that want it. I mean, I have no idea, but
exactly.
You got to stay. You got to continue with that evolutionary process. You got to keep evolving. You know, both technically, you know, with your equipment, which seems to be almost impossible to keep up with, but also with the knowledge you have and your creativity. It's hard to demand creativity from yourself. You know, it's like, I feel like I have writer's block sometimes. I sit here and look at a blank timeline for 45 minutes just trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to do.
Then when you get into it, you start diving into the footage and things start clicking, you know, because it was shot the right way. You got a lot of storyline, and things just start laying out for you. And,
yep.
You know, so I think we leave it with that, man. You know, and this isn't going to be the last time we're going to touch on this. And if anybody out there wants more specific direction on different things, reach out to us and ask us, and we'll give you to the best of our opinion, or best of our ability of how we do things, and maybe that might help you as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think we leave it with that. But the lasting note, I do want to say, you know, thank you to everybody for the support on this podcast. And, you know, I say it a lot, but it's much appreciated, you know. And if you guys could still go to iTunes or wherever you download the podcast and leave a rating and leave a review, just, you know, go in there and leave a rating and just write a sentence like, hey guys, you guys are killing it, or hey, this is a bunch of shit, you need to change this up, this is what I want to hear. You know, we want to hear it all. So, you know, you're not going to hurt our feelings at all. And we just need feedback so we don't get comfortable and get stagnant. We want to keep growing and keep getting better. So, again, I appreciate it. I know Justin appreciates it, but I don't know. You got anything to leave them with?
No, I mean, nothing I haven't said already. And I mean, my biggest piece of advice was to realize where you are in that evolutionary process of this whole thing, and don't let yourself get lapped. Just continue to evolve and adapt and accept the changes that are happening every single day, and just learn how to use them to your advantage.
Well, cool. We're going to shut this down, and like I said, everybody, just keep grinding out there and be different. Be different than the next guy, because it's really going to catapult you to, the next step. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you soon.
Natural.